Take us to San Diego.
Let's get you to San Diego.
Should we DM the Southwest Airlines Twitter account and be like, "Hey, can you sponsor us for this podcast? Oh, and by the way, can you pay us in tickets?"
Put our face on a plane.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Ooh, that day will come. John
That day
Boy's
will
just
come.
getting a billboard. Well, just
Just
had
got
a
taken down.
billboard. Yeah, well, we can wait for airlines. We'll build
Yeah.
ourselves to that.
All right, folks. Hello, welcome to today's episode of Juicing the Numbers Through Statistics and Sports podcast. I am one of your hosts, Joshua Tracy.
And I am Corwin Heller.
And
I questioned that. I didn't commit to my own
it was
name
not very
there.
strong. No, it wasn't.
No, I was questioning my own reality. Jeez.
Hopefully I sound the same, so that shouldn't be different. If you actually watch this show in the video, I look different. I'm in a different place. I have moved. My background is now plain white walls that are unoccupied by any artwork, although that will change. And I feel like I'm better lit, but I can't really tell that.
I would say so.
All right, fair enough. So yeah, different environment. My feet are on carpet. It feels really nice, I gotta say. As a lifelong hardwood stan, I have to say, it's really nice.
Yeah.
But,
See, if you notice that my background's different, it's because I'm in my basement because it's hot out and the basement is cool. Got all my bonfire supplies behind me. I got my feet on the carpet, so I'm right there with them, although I'm a lifelong carpet stan. And if you ever worry about how I handle under the stress of being in the limelight, being on the silver screen here, Josh and I have been talking for a good almost hour now before we started this. I didn't fuck up any sentences when we were talking, a couple idioms here and there, but that's natural. First sentence on the podcast, I screw up my own name and I dropped the first ball I tossed up in the air. So I am a mental midget collapsing under the pressure. Let's get started.
I am a sun collapsing under my own pressure.
The inner machinations of my mind are an enigma.
I also got my New York Jets jersey on. No hat for the first time, actually, during recording this. But anyway.
Yeah, showing off those locks.
I do have hair. It does exist. It's very thick and will never go away.
The hat promotion was not an issue or was not a wow. It's amazing how quickly I fucked up. This is insane. Was not an excuse to cover up his, balding head. He's got those thick locks there still. He's still got a salad that is freshly tossed. He's good to go. Hockey reference.
Yeah, really. The reality is that my hats are still like packed somewhere, and I didn't feel like finding them. Anyway,
I'll pick up the slack.
We got the Jets jersey on because the draft is now behind us. We were recording this on Sunday, May 2nd, new month. The pandemic marches forward, whether you wanted to or not. But the 2021 NFL draft is behind us. Picks have been made. Players are now on new teams and have entered the NFL for the first time. And some will be colossal difference makers, and some will be
Zach Wilson.
Some will be guys. Some will be guys who are dudes who do things, and you hope that they're okay, and that's all they're going to be in the NFL.
Yeah. I mean, we got 2 long snappers drafted. We got a kicker that was unscrewing Gatorade bottle caps from like 80 yards away. We've got a 265-pound punter that was drafted. We got it all this year.
And we're going to take it. We're going to try to get through 4 divisions, half the teams. We're going to take it division by division, doing the East and the North today, and then trying to probably do the South and the West later on. So let's go ahead and jump in with both feet and get started with our good old AFC East. We'll go by standings order from the 2020 season, which means we're starting with the Buffalo Bills. And let's take a look at who the Buffalo Bills drafted. They took defensive end Gregory Rousseau, defensive end Carlos Basham Jr., offensive tackle Spencer Brown, offensive tackle Tommy Doyle, wide receiver Marquez Stevenson, safety DeMar Hamlin, cornerback Rashad Wildgoose, great name, and guard Jack Anderson. I don't know any of these names offhand. Corwin, tell me. I
just noticed the Wild Goose name for the first time, and boy, that is fucking perfect.
And it's not even like it's spelled kind of funky, but it's pronounced Wild Goose. It is Wild Goose.
Yeah, it's just right there, for all it's worth. Buffalo Bills. I'll be honest, one of my least favorite drafts. I really don't care for some of the players picked. That being said, strategy wise, I'm all for it. I really do agree with a lot of the things they did where they identified key areas where they were weak, key areas where hey, they needed a lot of depth. They needed some guys who, could potentially step up. They were going to go after those positions and they went for it. They drafted three offensive linemen. They drafted two defensive edge rushers with their first two picks, two defensive ends, two outside linebackers. Not entirely sure how Buffalo will utilize them, but they knew what they were going after. Two defensive backs and a wide receiver to fill out some depth. That's really all you needed to ask for. As the Bills, my issues arise with the players they did pick. Um, they got some value in Carlos Basham. I like him going at 61. That's a little after where I probably would have had him. I think his potential is higher than that. But I also like him more than I like Gregory Rousseau at pick 30. Um, I really think, at the end of the day, Russo might have had a cunt hair higher of a grade overall in a vacuum. But getting one guy at 30 and one guy at 61 is just an insane difference in value. Um, I I made many a bets with Ethan about where Russo would go. He was convinced he was going to go in the first. I was convinced he would fall because, man, it's like watching his film. It's not promising. He had a lot of production 2 years ago. A lot of it was just wrap up plays, guys where or plays where he didn't necessarily blow past a defender. He didn't beat him with technique. He didn't beat him with power, speed, any one overpoweringly elite uh, trait. It was really just opportunity, and it was there. He was able to capitalize on opportunity created around him, not because of him. And while he has talent, I don't think it correlates well to a 30th overall selection, especially when he hasn't played since 2019. He opted out this past year. It really tanked his draft stock, where I'm sure when we did the draft preview podcast after last year's draft, I'm sure Gregory Rousseau was a top 5 pick for us. But then you dig through the film. I didn't watch any film by the time we did that draft. It was all of, media speculation and where we saw guys, and based off 2019 raw production and what you see live during games or in highlights, not necessarily film breakdowns. And it's just it's not my favorite. So I'm ready to move on from them unless you have any other comments.
Not really. I can't speak much to the specific players, so I'll just talk a little bit about how I, see Buffalo constructed. Offensive line was a big issue for them. Josh Allen is very good on his legs, and I think he was probably asked to do a lot on his legs this last season because the offensive line around him would often just collapse and not so much necessarily they be designed run plays. Now you're always going to have to run out of necessity. Like pockets only hold for so long. But at the same time, giving more time is literally never a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
As an offensive line, if that pocket held for 5 entire fucking minutes, it'd be wonderful. Um,
If there's a pocket that is one held for 5 minutes and needed for 5 minutes, that's good football. No matter
uh,
what you say, no matter how awful it is to watch, that's good football.
and that feels like a lot of Aaron Rodgers' pockets over the years. But anyway,
Oh boy, I feel like that's something we're going to need to talk about after all this.
yeah, yeah. So I get that the defensive end picks back to back, I think is a little bit surprising only because Buffalo's defense has been rather stout for, I don't know, the past century. They're kind of middle of the road in terms of sacks, but actually no, I'm looking they were like bottom 10 in quarterback pressure percent last season. So maybe their line, though, those ends do make a little bit more sense in context. Um, I guess I'm surprised there's not more offensive weapons being taken here.
Hmm.
That's what takes me by surprise the most. Spending that one pick, that lone pick on wide receiver, I think is kind of odd, but
Especially in the 6th round, 203. That's not going to be an impact player for you.
no, that's a bit weird.
I mean,
Um,
we talked about it. We talked about Cole Beasley and how he was producing way more than we ever would have expected him to. I know they still have John Brown there. They have Isaiah McKenzie or Isaiah Wright, one of the two. Um, I just don't necessarily think those guys behind Stephon Diggs are difference makers. It's always nice to have a solid number two. Calvin Ridley to Julio Jones, Michael Gallup or CeeDee Lamb for your Amari Cooper. You look at the Steelers' depth. You look at teams with you look at Denver with their insane depth, and it's always a better situation to have. It's a very valuable position to have depth at, and I'm not a fan of the Bills. That being said, I still think they're my favorites to win the division. I think Miami will give them a run this year. But I think both the Patriots and the Jets are, they're going to have their rookie quarterbacks. We don't expect, Mac Jones to be starting in New England. We do expect Zach Wilson to be starting in New York, but I don't think they're there to compete. So Buffalo's still at the top for me.
yeah, it doesn't move the needle much for their competitiveness. Let's take it to Miami then. Since they are finished next in the standings in the AFC East last season, their picks were wide receiver Jalen Waddle, edge rusher Jalen Phillips, safety Javon Holland. They only drafted people with J names.
Mm-hmm.
Offensive tackle Liam Eckenberg. Uh,
Eichenberg.
Eichenberg, tight end Hunter Long, offensive tackle Larnell Coleman, and running back Garrid Dokes. Sorry. What do you think about these picks here, Corwin?
I really liked Miami's draft. I love the Jalen Waddle pick. If it wasn't for the fact that Penei Sewell was there, I think value wise, before we dig into that, I feel like it's something we saw with this draft where, teams that were very needy at offensive line, like Minnesota, like Pittsburgh, um, I think Carolina also passed. Um, they didn't necessarily go for these top end offensive line pieces. They went for more skill position.
Feels like the
And
exact opposite of last year.
right, where they are taking the mid-round offensive line pieces, getting the skill position guys, assuming that they can fill in the rest of those holes later on in the draft. And hey, they do much more in-depth scouting than either one of us will ever do. They know these players and have more access to information than any one of us plus the media will ever have. And at the end of the day, they know more, they know better. And if they think that's where the value's at, we just have to sit back and trust them. We both preach our build in the trenches, get skill position later on where you can find value. That may not always be the case. There's, never any one rule to rule them all. Fuck me. Um, and this I think is one of those years where you see the, you know, seesaw tilting back the other direction. And those of us who are preaching for the trenches get laughed at, which is fine. I'll accept it. That's how I personally view it. That's the where I value those, the cost benefits from drafting those guys early, especially in the first round. I'm an idiot. Don't trust us. Don't lockstep follow us all the way down. There's a billion different ways to follow it. Miami thinks Jalen Waddle can be a more dynamic, one of a kind playmaker than a guy like Penei Sewell can. And at the end of the day, if you look at, the potential value that could bring to your team in this situation, I think it's a fine pick for them to make. I think Jalen Waddle is going to be an absolute stud of a wide receiver. I hate comparing, unproven guys who have dealt with crazy injuries, haven't played in the NFL, unproven situations, whatnot, comparing them to, Hall of Fame level players. But if there's anyone coming out in recent memory, very much more so than like a John Ross, very much more so than like Henry Ruggs coming out as a prospect, Jalen Waddle can turn into a Tyreek Hill. He could have that kind of impact for a team. He is just so explosive and so good at moving. He can do that.
I wonder, how much of it is scouting the players you're planning on drafting versus or in coordination with scouting the players you have. You know,
Hmm.
the Packers fans, again bringing up Aaron Rodgers here, um, have long cried for their team to draft a fucking wide receiver in the first round. And part of that's because, is offensive line as important to um, Green Bay as wide receiver is? It seems like kind of no, because Rodgers has a great way of hitting his marks, finding his man, and being elusive in the pocket. That's not to say it's not important, and Green Bay has also had good offensive lines, which has helped with all that.
Hmm.
But maybe there's a math there somewhere that shows that value difference when your quarterback's good. Sam Darnold could have had Michael Thomas or anybody to throw to. His offensive line was so bad, he never had the time to get off a good pass to go through all his reads. So for the Jets in the Sam Darnold era, offensive line would have been more important. That's why you saw us take Mekhi Becton in the first round last season. Maybe,
And again this year. Well, we'll get there. Go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead.
maybe Miami's calculus looks something like Tua Tagovailoa is really good. We feel our offensive line is at a B, but our wide receivers are at a C. Drafting the marginal difference between Panay Sewell going from a B to an A for our overall offensive line is not as great as the marginal difference between drafting Waddle and going from a C to an A for our wide receiver core, or however that idea looks. That could be somewhere in that as well, where those actual distinctions get made. That again, Corn and I will never know.
Hmm.
So,
And it's not universally the case this year that people are avoiding offensive linemen. You look at Kansas City, where undoubtedly their biggest weakness was offensive line. We saw what happened in the Super Bowl. We saw what happened at the end of last year. They invested heavily in offensive line this offseason, and it's a complete turnaround. I mean, we'll talk about them next episode, next time we record. But it's not just the case. There's multiple paths to take. What's effective? In this case, they went with Jalen Waddle, and we applaud the pick.
yeah.
They also went Jalen Phillips. Love that pick as well. I think 18 is a perfect spot for him. He's going to be a guy that can come in to start. Javon Holland, I'm not super high on comparatively, but at the end of the day, that was a position of need. He fills it. Liam Eichenberg, I think, is a good value at 42 and fits that offensive line piece that they were looking for. I think if you were looking at, the wide receivers there in the second round at pick 42 that you could have if you went Sewell, wide receiver, versus Waddle, Liam Eichenberg, I think the trade-off, I think the value is close enough to be a wash. And if we talked about doing it where we were going to go through all the first round picks and judge those individually, and then in the second episode review all of the draft classes as a whole. And one of the big reasons we chose to not do that was for exactly this. You look at Jalen Waddle, and it's like, all right, well, they clearly don't value protecting Tua. That not a huge, like, not a great grade because of that. And Waddle's a great player, but you don't know what their plan is. And now seeing that, hey, we will protect him, we will be doing things to invest in the line, just albeit a little bit later. Okay, that makes more sense now. They had a plan. They were able to, you know, implement it. Here we are. That changes the outcome.
All right. Let's keep it moving. Let's head over to New England now. They drafted quarterback Mac Jones, defensive tackle Christian Barmore, defensive end Ronnie Perkins, running back Ramondre Stevenson, left linebacker
Oh, I
Cameron
missed that
McGrone.
name.
Ramondre's
Ramondre Steves. I missed that one.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's a good one. Linebacker Cameron McGrone. Ugh. Safety Joshua Bledsoe. I think he's related to Drew.
I was just thinking that, yeah.
Offensive guard William Sherman and wide receiver Trey Nixon. Corwin, what do you think about the New England Patriots draft here?
Now knowing that they took one of the most feared generals in the Civil War, and the guy who burned Atlanta and Savannah to the ground, destroyed Charleston, man, William Tecumseh Sherman, scary guy to be on that defensive front. Offensive front.
Joshua Bledsoe, not related to Drew Bledsoe.
Do you think he will be a starter for them and, be a middle of the pack guy and then all of a sudden get hurt and this guy, Nicky Brady comes in and is the next Ed Reed kind of safety?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much locked in. All right,
Yeah.
we're locking that in. But New England had a very New England draft. They draft the quarterback with the biggest bust potential in Mac Jones. You look at the successful quarterbacks over the last 5, 6, 7 years, basically since Andrew Luck was drafted, and you see, hey, guys who succeeded, guys who faltered, guys who had that running threat, who had that, had the feet, had the legs to not be locked into the pocket, have succeeded at a significantly higher clip than those who were sturdy pocket passers. That is concerning when you look at, what Mac Jones does. He played in a very beneficial offense for the quarterback where you have a wide receiver room where you've had 4 of them drafted in the first round over the past 2 years. Like, that's just unbelievable. The talent there supporting him is unbelievable. Coming now into the NFL, he's going to be playing against much stiffer competition, much more diverse defensive fronts without nearly the help he had. Can he still compete passes at a 77% clip? No, obviously not. We just have to see how far he falls. He's had 1 season of starting experience, which is scary. There's a lot of concern, but his deep throw ability, his flashes that he's had do say, hey, there's a chance he could be something very special if he's supported and if he's put in a good system. And boy, I genuinely just don't know. I really don't know if New England's going to be able to kind of put that all together.
It's such a New England pick also in part because it's Belichick, whose biggest thing is, I don't care what you do, really, as long as you don't turn over the ball.
Mm-hmm.
That's his he's such a non-risk taker in that respect, where he does not want you, like, you'll hear running backs who oftentimes, if a running back is like near the first down marker on 3rd down, or they're near the goal line, they'll stick the ball out, try to get that extra yard or 2. That is a huge no-no in Bill Belichick's system, because that is an opportunity for you to lose the ball and commit a turnover. And he is like so against So picking a guy that is 77% completion percent in college and finding ways to just make him, you are muted again, Corwin, finding ways to make him the check down king that he kind of had Brady being for a lot of his career. It sounds so Belichick.
What's nutty is, he's so good at throwing the ball deep. I really want him to go in and just get let loose. Like, I just want to really see like this opposite of Tom Brady in a weird way, where unathletic white boy from a power football conference, a big time football school, I should say, coming in and just making it work, just find a way to make it work. And I think that in and of itself is another huge Belichick trope of like, hey, I don't care what you look like. I don't care, what everyone else says about you. If you come in and fill your role, do what you need to do, you got a spot on my team. We'll find a way to make it work. And I do trust Bill will build the team around him and play him up to his strengths. It's really just, God, it's just the pure fucking hope that it doesn't work out, because I can't handle another Bill Belichick dynasty.
Yeah, well, although thankfully
I just want the change of pace. We say that. Who knows? I could see a fucking 85-year-old Bill Belichick on the sideline just still fucking getting in guys' faces.
I don't know. I think at some point he's just going to step back, just because I think he's going to want to, not because I think he like has a 2-14 season or anything like that. But whatever. I don't really care.
Times undefeated.
Fuck New England. We're talking about the Jets now.
I will say Christian Barrymore at 38 is an immense value and really dumb that he fell that far to him. Okay, New York Jets.
The New York Jets, the mighty Jets, the 2-14 New York Jets, with the second overall pick, took quarterback Zach Wilson, who is apparently, I had no idea, the whitest man alive.
It's wild.
Dude, I never saw like a picture of him. So when I saw pictures of him like with his like suit on in the bathroom, I was like, oh, buddy.
Yeah.
You're going to get fucked.
It's wild how the more and more you actually see him like in this setting, like in the limelight and all this, the more and more it's just clear. Like it's painting a picture where I could see him be this flaming Johnny Manziel level catastrophe of just him having all this potential, everyone in the world trying to get him to work, and he just loses his fucking mind and just goes crazy.
Gets high on syrup.
Yeah.
Some other weird shit, mayonnaise.
Like him looking
he looks like he's molded out of white bread.
Frightened. Just that one clip with almost no context of him and a bunch of other first round picks all like together. They were like throwing up like hand signs and stuff like that, just like celebrating. And he's just looking scared as all hell. Like, Mom, come pick me up. I'm scared.
I also forgot he went to Binghamton Young University. Yeah. And I was like, oh no.
Oh, you were so Mormon.
You weren't just around the whites. You were around the really whites.
Yes. Like, I still fully believe in the talent. And I think he could be a Joe Namath kind of guy where fully embraces that limelight, walks
Joe
around
Namath
in a fur coat. Listen, I don't want to go there. We're going to stick to on the fields and the surrounding, like the direct surrounding.
Joe Namath tried to fuck on the field too. I won't hear it any other way.
I can't.
We all seen the clips.
Yeah, I can't speak to that.
Anyway,
but the Jets, man, they had one of my favorite first two rounds of the draft. Getting Wilson, moving up for Elijah Vera Tucker.
Oh yeah, I didn't finish reading all the names. Let me read all the names.
Sorry.
No, you're good. We got sidetracked. So quarterback Justin Wilson, Zach Wilson, offensive guard Elijah Vera Tucker, wide receiver Elijah Moore, running back Michael Carter, safety Hamien. I'm gonna go with Jamian Sherwood. Safety Michael Carter, cornerback Jason Pinnock, safety Hamza Nasirildeen, sorry. Cornerback Brandon Eccles, and defensive tackle Jonathan Marshall.
Did you get Michael Carter?
And I also got Michael Carter.
Okay, so you got Michael Carter. As long as we got Michael Carter, we're good. That is just fantastic. I will forever believe that they drafted the wrong Michael Carter first and had to correct their mistake with the next pick.
Shit. God, that next one, the other one.
But because there's a pick in between, I really would love to think that nobody noticed at first. And then like they're just looking at their board and they're like, or like they see ESPN talking about the past picks and they're like,
yeah.
Wait a second.
All right, Joe. So we got that running back you wanted. Like, what are you looking for now? Running back? No. We were supposed to draft the safety. No. You said Michael Carter, the running back. No, Michael Carter, the safety. We don't need a fucking running back.
I really hope that they haven't tweeted out any of like their physical draft cards yet, so we don't know. Like if I was running a team's like PR, I would go out of my way to like play that up of like, we're going to let this one go. Like we're the Jets. We're self-aware enough to know what people think of us. Let's play that up. That's fun. Let's have some fun here.
That is fun.
But I really do like the top of that draft. You know, you get a really great offensive guard to just complete the left side of your line, protect your quarterback. Again, build those trenches. You're seeing a fantastic value at 34. Well, I don't want to say fantastic value because it is the second pick of the second round, but good value in Elijah Moore, who a lot of guys thought was, you know, the number 4 wide receiver in this class, a very good player in his own right. That's your three biggest needs: offensive line, wide receiver, and quarterback. And those, you know, matching Elijah Moore with Denzel Mims, you have your 1-2 punch. You have a relatively complete offensive line, at least one side locked down, where you can fill in pieces for now and continue to build down the road. You have your quarterback. You know, you get a running back who's, he's going to pound the ball. He's going to add some, impact. It's just, I don't necessarily think he'll be that fourth. I don't think he's going to be like the mid-round late running back that breaks out and is, someone special. But again, it can always happen. We don't know yet, but I think the Jets had a very good draft.
I'm perfectly fucking happy, man. I mean, you hadn't taken a defensive end late in the first. I was hoping that they would take an offensive lineman. They traded up to take an offensive lineman. This is great. I mean, again, it's exactly what you want. One of the biggest complaints with the Sam Darnold years was that the Jets never really seemed to invest anything serious in the offensive line. Like they would bring in some veterans, but like they'd like get weird veterans. Like they wouldn't get the top end veterans. They'd get a guy who like came out of retirement. They get a guy who like had a Pro Bowl year that one year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, like those are all things. Those are all
Hey,
acquisitions, but like you have to, someone has to play the position. You got a guy like
how's that Brandon Marshall jersey we got you?
phenomenal. But it's great to see in Joe Douglas's first draft that he wheeled and dealed and got up there and got an offensive lineman to complement Mekhi Becton, who's been phenomenal for us. And then to spend the next 2 picks after that on offense was great. So the first 4 picks of the draft were all offensive picks. You got a quarterback, an offensive lineman, a wide receiver, and a running back. And barring the running back, those were all huge positions of need. The running back you take in all right, that's a guy. Sure.
That's a guy.
Doesn't need to be anything special. It's the running back. So, but the fact that they're investing in guys that they want, guys that will fit the system that they're putting together, that's what's important. And to have all those pieces kind of come about from the brainchild of the GM and the coach in the same draft, which again was not the case necessarily for the Jets past 20 fucking years, is wonderful. It's so encouraging. And then to see the next 5 straight picks being in the backfield is also great because the Jets have long had good defenses. And the past few years, the defensive front has still been really good. And then the backfield has been, or the secondary has been a mess. And I'm not going to sit here and say that these 5 picks are going to absolutely turn over the secondary because no, you should never say that. And also it's 5 picks in the 3rd or 4th round or later.
That's later. Their second. So it went Elijah Moore, and then they went into the 4th round. So everything there was like 5th round and later.
Right. Exactly. So none of these guys are going to be like necessarily. I'm taking like a start. Like neither of these cornerbacks are necessarily going to be like your number 1 corner. But regardless, they don't even like need to be. The idea is that there's a scheme that's being built. There are obvious areas of need that are being addressed. And they're actually addressing them with guys that they want. It's miraculous. There's no head scratchers here. It's beautiful. Right. There's no head scratchers. And then just for good measure, they take a defensive tackle at the end. Don't give a shit. Cool. It's whatever. I'm very, very happy. I'm wearing my jersey because I'm happy with this draft. If I wasn't happy with the draft, I wouldn't wear my jersey today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at their depth chart right now. I mean, you have Marcus May there, who's clearly the leader of that defensive backfield.
He's the leader of the bunch. You know him well. He's finally back to kick some tail. All right, anyway.
You have LaMarcus Joyner there, who is, a veteran presence. But you look at cornerbacks, and the projected starters are Bless Austin, Bryce Hall, Michael Carter II. Those don't scream top-end cornerbacks. Going deep there with, cornerback picks, defensive backfield picks, you're basically playing up like, all right, these guys are not taken early enough to be projected starters. They're not early enough to be day 1 starters. But we can hope that some of them or one of them, any number of them, are going to step up, be productive. We have faith in them. let's see if we can find guys to fill out this depth. We need guys to step up. And the only way you can really do that in the draft is spend capital. And when you don't have early capital, you have to spend a lot more later capital. That's exactly what they did. So, again, I've really enjoyed this draft. It's definitely going to be a building year for them. It's nowhere close to expectations of them competing in this division yet. I think we all know that. But the fact that we are seeing this, front office make the right decisions with coaching early on, make the right decisions in free agency, make the right decisions in the draft. We're seeing consistency now. We're seeing it all point in the right direction. It's not one move saying, all right, we're taking the first step. It's not two moves. All right, we're seeing it. Let's see if it carries. This is now boom, 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 all pointing in the right direction.
They're building.
All in the right way.
For once. Yeah, agree. I actually don't think any of the drafts for any of the 4 teams in the AFC East really moved the needle for any of them in terms of their competitiveness, only because where they are in their development was very much so established before this.
Right.
If you told me that like the Patriots really struggled because Cam Newton got off to a slow start but they didn't want to push Mac Jones into the starting role too soon, and so they just kind of like sucked for a bit. And the Jets got off to a scorching hot start, and Jets finished. It's going to be a 17-game schedule, which we never talked about. But you're muted again.
Yep, which is wild.
Yeah, but and you told me that like the Jets finished 8-9, and the Pats finished 7-10 or some shit, like somewhere where they both finished near 500 and the Jets just kind of finished over the Pats. I could buy it, but a lot would have to go right for the Jets. A lot would have to go wrong for the Pats. And that is the same thing for every situation, I think, in the standings. So
I'd agree. It's a very, I don't want to say set in stone because it never is, but by all means, there's a very clear hierarchy all the way through.
Right. And so now let's take it to the exact opposite situation, which is the NFC East. So the team that won that division last year with a sterling 7-9 record is the Washington Washingtonians. They should change their name to the Washington 51st Staters. Try to force Congress's hand there. That'd be funny. Let's make a statement here, folks. All right. Washington's draft, they took linebacker Jamin Davis. I'm guessing at these name pronunciations, and I'm sorry. Offensive tackle Samuel Cosme. Cornerback Benjamin St. Justy. Wide receiver De'Ami Brown. Tight end John Bates. Safety Derek Forrest. Long snapper? I saw LS and was like,
one of two.
Yeah, okay. And not that like their last pick. All right, long snapper Cameron Cheeseman.
Yeah.
No, long snapper. They drafted long snapper Cameron Cheeseman.
There were Packer fans that were irate that the Packers didn't get him.
Packers didn't draft the Cheeseman. Oh man. All right, so long snapper Cameron Cheeseman. Defensive end William Bradley King. Defensive end Shaka Toney. And wide receiver Dax Milne. Huh?
We'll talk about it after the podcast.
All right. What do you think about Washington's draft, and does it help them in any significant way maintain their division top dog status?
No, it does not help their top dog status.
No.
They don't have a quarterback here. They were really never in a position to get a quarterback here. And at the end of the day, that's kind of the thing where, hey, Alex Smith retired. You don't have your 15th overall pick from 2 years ago. You have Ryan Fitzpatrick. You're not going to win the division with Ryan Fitzpatrick. That's just kind of how it goes, no matter how good your defense is. That being said, they have an athletic linebacker in Jamin Davis. They have a really great offensive lineman prospect in Samuel Cosme. De'Ami Brown was a guy who people were talking about sneaking into the early second. I'm sure there were guys talking about him in the first, but getting him at 82 is just such insane value that it really doesn't matter. That was a huge need for them as well. They just all the way through, built out the team in a really great way. Hey, taking a 6th-round long snapper is fine if you're getting a 10-year starter out of a 6th-round pick. That's how you do it. Way too early to tell. I'm not even going to begin to attempt to say that I have scouted anything with a long snapper ever. I of course love.
What would you even draft for? How long he snaps the ball?
It's all consistency. It has to be consistency.
I know, but that was what I was going for. I didn't care about the real answer to that question.
Oh, I kind of just okay. Oops.
You heard me say how long the long snapper snaps the ball, and you took that as a serious response.
I am a stupid person.
That should be a Pro Bowl event.
The longest, like,
the
accuracy
longest snap.
targets, long snappers, longest snaps. Yeah, absolutely. Why there isn't a more skilled, skill competition based event is ridiculous. Like, the way they do it now is better than playing the game because nobody gave a shit. And other than Sean Taylor killing that punter, nothing exciting has ever happened in the Pro Bowl. But yeah, that would be really fun. That'd be really fun.
Anyway.
I like the Shaka Tony pick because he's a defensive end that can run in like the low 4.4s, high 4.3s. And that's really cool. And he's so fucking quick off the ball, getting that in the 7th round, no matter how much he needs to kind of bulk up and how much you think he's going to get swallowed up by massive offensive linemen. Whatever, he can fill a role at some point. Plus, he went to Penn State, so whatever. I'm biased. In all, though, I do think they had a very good draft.
Yeah, it's a team that had a losing record, and just because they're one of the division doesn't really mean shit because their division was trash. And it's a team with a lot of holes, but showed a lot of promise with a new coaching staff. And some bright spot players who ended up kind of making a difference. It's tough to say if this does anything for them since they're locked into the kind of the highest spot they can get in this division at 2, assuming Dak Prescott comes back at even fucking 50% of what he usually is.
Which he will.
Yeah, I have so much faith in Dak. So this draft to me is a fucking shrug, man. There's this. Who the fuck knows with this?
Right.
Yeah. All right.
I'm with it. I'm jiggy with it.
And let's just move on. I forgot they finished second in their division to the Giants. Did you remember they finished second in their division?
If you asked me to put these teams in order from last season, I don't think I would be able to get a single one right.
Outside of Washington, I think you're right.
I don't even think I would have remembered that they won the division. I just think I'd be like, I am not confident with any single spot for any single team.
I only remember that they won the division because Taylor Heineke started in a playoff game and everyone was posting pictures of Heineke beers and making jokes that were very unoriginal.
Touché.
All right, so the New York Gigantes traded back in the draft and ended up taking wide receiver Kadarius Toney, offensive linebacker Azeez Ojulari, cornerback Aaron Robinson, offensive linebacker Ellerson Smith, offensive outside linebacker. Jeez, wow. Sorry. Brain was on autopilot for a second.
Offensive lineman backer.
Offensive left back. Running back Gary Brightwell and cornerback Rodarius Williams. All right, Corwin. Not a lot of picks here. The Kadarius Toney pick I saw being a little bit discussed in the world of Twitter. Tell me about this draft.
So they moved back from pick 11 to pick 20. In doing so, they picked up a 2022 first-round pick, which was the major return piece there. At 20, taking Kadarius Toney seems like a big reach for me. I know he is a dynamic playmaker. I don't think he's a first-round wide receiver. I think the options there at receiver were better. I think Rashad Bateman would be a much better pick and would fit the Giants better long term. I get that they just signed Kenny Golladay, but at the end of the day, you have so many other slot receivers there. You've spent so much capital on slot receivers there the past couple of years that I just don't think this fits your team well enough. That being said, getting that first round pick is, of course, huge. and they were able to land Aziz Ajulari in the second round, where if you took him at 20, I would love that trade. I would think that's an A+ trade for the Giants. I think Ajulari at pick 20 would have been early, but very understandable. So getting him at 50, I love. From then on, Aaron Robinson fits a need. Ellerson Smith, I should say, fills a need. All these players fill needs. Nothing really speaks to me. I mean, a 4th and 2/6 after that Aaron Robinson pick, there's not a whole lot to talk about there. So again, nothing here moves the needle for me, which at the end of the day kind of locks in their grade of it's whatever. It's nothing to write home about. I was with Ethan when the Giants made their pick. He was very upset, understandably. I think he was most upset at my reaction to it, which was not ideal. But yeah, rough start, pretty decent finish.
Yeah, I think if you're a Giants fan, if I was a Giants fan, I would be most thrilled about this draft because you got a first round pick next year.
Right.
And I would just pray to God that the guy using that pick next year isn't David Gettleman.
Oh yeah. I'm so done with Dave Gettleman.
Right. And this draft was going to be suspect no matter what, and that's not even because of Gettleman's fault for this season. It's because of Gettleman's fault for taking Daniel Jones. This season for the Giants will not hinge upon who they took in the draft this year, the way that the Jets will. It will hinge upon whether or not Daniel Jones takes a singular fucking step in the right direction. That's what's going to make or break the Giants' expectations for the following season. And if Daniel Jones isn't taking those steps and these picks aren't impactful upon that growth in at least some type of way, not that they need to, but just for the Giants' future sake, but I think they kind of need to for Dave Gettleman's future with the company's sake. You gotta hope that they fucking move on, because you can't give this guy, if he hasn't put together a single piece outside of Saquon fucking Barkley that has been a consistent producer for you, 2 first-round picks next year, in what could be a make or break. Because imagine the Jets let Mike McCagnon do this draft this year. 2 first-round picks, a quarterback on the rocks. You're not quite sure if you want to keep him or not. Like, imagine it'd be terrible. And because it's the guy who drafted the first quarterback, they may or may not be more inclined to not admit they were wrong and keep that guy. And you know what? Trading Sam Darnold was the right call. And if fucking what's his face, Daniel Jones doesn't put it together this year, trading Daniel Jones might be the right call too, depending on what this year looks like. And you might have to get a new guy in there to make that decision and to use those 2 firsts to really drive forward your team's progress. And I just am, if David Gettleman didn't do it the first time around, there is no reason to give him a second time around. So you're muted again.
I'm 100% with you. I muted myself because I had to fart.
I think telling us that you had to fart basically negates the purpose of the mute, right?
Fuck off. I think if you take a step back and look at kind of the reasoning behind some of these picks, it does call into question, hey, this is, Dave Gettleman drafting for his job. Okay, guess what? You signed Kenny Golladay. You don't need a boundary receiver there nearly as much. You have him and Slayton. Okay, Sterling Shepard hasn't worked out. Golden Tate hasn't worked out. They're fucking, what's the name of their tight end? Evan Engram hasn't really worked out. All right. Kyle Pitts got taken before their pick at 11. We trade back to get some value, give us some more, capital. Our guy's not there. You take Kadarius Toney. It's like, all right, we'll slide him into the slot. Maybe he has a spectacular year. We'll give that for Daniel Jones. Hey, we'll take a late running back. Maybe he can, be a complimentary piece to Saquon Barkley. Okay, we need to get Daniel Jones cooking. We need to do that. All right, we're drafting for our jobs here. but they never address offensive line. Not once in the entire draft do they address offensive line. It's not a huge groundbreaking need like it was for some other teams, but at the end of the day, Jesus, if all your cards are still in on Daniel Jones, and for Dave Gettleman they are, man, it's not exactly the way I would have pieced it out, but here we are.
Yeah. Again, this draft isn't going to make or break the season. It might not make or break Edelman's job. Daniel Jones will, but fucking man, who the fuck knows?
Exactly.
All right, let's take it to the likely division winners. The Dallas Cowboys. Oh wait, actually, did they finish third in their division or were they last? I forgot to check. Okay, no, they were third. Okay, good. All right. The Dallas Cowboys took linebacker Micah Parsons, cornerback Kelvin Joseph, defensive tackle Osa Adejazua, defensive end Chauncey Golston, cornerback Nashawn Wright, linebacker Jabril Cox, offensive tackle Josh Ball, wide receiver Semi Fehoko, defensive tackle Quentin Bohanna, cornerback Israel Mukuwama, and guard, Jesus, I fucked up guard right after I got Mukuwama. Guard Matt Farniok. Corwin, tell me about this draft full of delightful names.
I have very mixed emotions. On one hand, I got Micah Parsons. I love the value at pick 12. I love the value of Jabril Cox at 115. I think he has the chance to be a day one starter at linebacker who could come in and cover guys. As excellent cover corner. The rest of their picks in between those were a lot of serious reaches. Nashawn Wright, Asa, the one.
Odigizua.
Thank you. Big reaches. Chauncey Golston, reach. Like, this is crazy. Like, obviously, you and I do not know these players in depth enough. We're going off of the consensus of multiple different scouts, multiple different big boards, everything I've looked at, whether it's from ESPN, The Athletic, PFF, less PFF, but different sites sourcing everyone else. I know it can be what's the term for it? I don't want to get stuck on this, but a feedback loop of just guys feeding off of their opinions. But at the end of the day, a consensus is a consensus, and none of these guys were anywhere close to their draft stock where they were picked. And of course, we will have to wait and see how it all turns out. But if I was a Cowboys fan, I would not be incredibly hopeful based off of, the return that they got. You have those two really good picks that I really love. I've looked in and seen some videos about how, these defensive line picks are basically there, like Osa's there to be a interior lineman, plug up offensive lineman so Micah can have a clear path to the rusher. And if it works out, fantastic. We're just going to have to wait and see. And it just does not, outside of Parsons, there's no star player here that, is building out the hope, building out the, moving the needle for the Cowboys.
Yeah, you have to wonder if they're going with boom potential and not caring much about bust. Again, I don't know these players either, but I've heard some of the similar reach kind of comments that you made. But you got to wonder where the Cowboys see themselves and because it's not going to take much for them to win this division. This division's bad. The only reason they didn't win this division was because Dak Prescott got hurt and they had no good competent backup because Andy Dalton is a clown. And Andy Dalton, if I see you on the street, I will tell you that to your face. But anyway, no, I don't really give a shit. Anyway, so you got to. I wonder. I don't know how they view the team's makeup, and because the team underperformed so much, I don't know how where the team's holes necessarily lie, for solving their issues. I hate to say this all really boils down. Their whole season boils down to, hey, how does Dak look coming back from surgery? But at the same time, kind of does.
Their defense, what it comes down to, what quarterback you got?
They just lost. Who's the guy that just retired? Sean Lee.
Mhm.
just retired. So, they'll be able to, I guess, try to shore up his positional group by having Micah Parsons there. Micah?
Micah.
Micah.
Hey, they replaced one legendary Penn State linebacker with another legendary Penn State linebacker. It's going to work out for him.
Yeah, really, there you go. But this was almost all defense draft. So,
Which
um,
they needed.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, clearly, maybe that's the view. Clearly, they think their offense is just fine with the pieces that they have, plus a healthy Dak, and they're just going to spend all their capital on defense and just try to ride that shit to a championship. Is what I'm going to assume. And honestly, they could very much so be right in like the worst way, which is that Andy could have picked almost anybody. But
Yeah, I
hey,
mean, even with the losses they've had on their legendary offensive line from years past, you have three number one wide receivers. You have Ezekiel Elliott. You have Dak Prescott. You have some usable tight ends there. Blake Jarwin, and I forget the other guy's name, but it really doesn't matter. You still have a good offensive line. The offense is fine. Your defense was historically bad last year for the Cowboys. That's where you needed to fill holes. Going all defense in the draft isn't a bad move if that's the only place you need help.
yeah. All right.
Again, the draft isn't what moves the needle for the Cowboys. We both agree that it's Dak, and I easily would have them as the favorites to win the division, and it's all going to come down to that.
And let's take it to the last team in their division, the team that finished last in their division, the 4-11-1 Philadelphia Eagles. They drafted wide receiver Devontae Smith, offensive, oh God, OL, outside linebacker? No, OL?
Offensive
Offensive lineman.
line.
Okay, all
So
right, I overthought it.
Landon Dickerson's going to play center for the, or I guess not because they have Jason Kelsey. He'll probably be left guard.
Okay.
If I had to guess.
Sure. They also drafted defensive end Milton Williams, cornerback Zach McPherson. Hey Zach. Maybe it's Zeke. It's definitely not Zach. It is Zach.
Mm-hmm.
They named their kid Zach.
Mm-hmm.
They named their kid a spelling mistake. Oh man, we named our kid a mispronunciation. Anyway, running back Kenneth Gainwell, defensive tackle Marlon Tuipulotu.
His full name is Zechariah.
Oh, that's not great, but it's a lot better. Defensive end Taron Jackson, linebacker Jacoby Stevens, and defensive end Patrick Johnson. Corwin, what do you think about our last place Philadelphia Smeagol's there?
I really, really, really like this draft. This is genuinely one of my favorites out of the entire NFL. Devonta Smith. So the thing with them and this entire draft is it is truly one of the riskiest that you can see. I mean, Devonta Smith, Heisman Trophy winner, absolutely dynamic, rangy wide receiver. There are concerns with the sides. We've talked about it. We've mentioned it. That's, our biggest concerns because that's his only concern. He has tremendous hands, good route running, great speed. He can do it all for you. But if he goes up against some press corners, some physical press corners, he might get bullied around. But at the end of the day, huge need for the Eagles. Huge fit for them. Just exactly what they need, exactly what they're looking for. It could be a fantastic pick. Landon Dickerson could be the best offensive lineman in this entire draft. He's just had such a long injury history. There's risk there. He's a guy the Steelers were looking at in the first round. They get him at 37. If he's healthy, he's going to be an all-pro level guy, or has the potential to be, if he's healthy. Milton Williams is a guy who could be one of the most athletic defensive linemen, one of the most dynamic defensive linemen in the NFL. If he continues on the pace he's at, that's a big if, obviously, getting drafted 73rd overall out of Louisiana Tech. It's a question mark, but huge potential. Zach McPherson is a corner who can came out of Texas Tech, transferred there from Penn State. That's,
You mean
how I know him
Texas
so
Zach?
well. Texas Zach. That is correct.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen him play. He's a good corner. He's a guy who could really get after it. He can play all over, and he fills a major need for the Eagles. Kenneth Gainwell is a dynamic pass-catching running back. He can be that guy for the Eagles behind Miles Sanders. He could be their, number 2. He could be a good backup for them. I really don't know much of the rest of the draft, but if your first 5-round picks are all guys with immense potential that could all be starters for you, yes, they're risky, but at the end of the day, it's a great draft that with the potential to be an all-time draft if they all hit.
And plus they are again very much so addressing their needs in exactly the way I'd imagine a fan would want them to. So you're starting not Justin Fields. What's the name of their quarterback now?
Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts. Sorry. He is getting the starting job. You traded away Carson Wentz. Jalen Hurts is now starting for you. Let's make sure we get him weapons and protection. You use your first 2 picks on wide receiver and offensive line. That's great. That's a great start. Now you look at where else the Eagles kind of need to compete. And in this division, defense. And they spent a lot of capital on defense, which has been a problem for them. You assume Justin Fields again. Jalen Hurts is going to be able to do some shit on offense. So you're not going to spend too much of your draft worrying about necessarily gathering up all the weapons. Plus you have some pieces left over from, the years prior, and you're going to try to build out that defense, assuming that you can get the offense moving with this second season of Jalen Hurts. And it's a good fucking strategy. And it sounds like they pick guys that have good boom potential, which again, if they're going to compete they're going to have to force their window open. The division is still bad. Even including the Cowboys, the division is bad. Having one good team doesn't make the division not bad. And if they're going to be able to leapfrog over 2 entire teams to get to second place in the division, which honestly is totally doable, they're going to need to try to pick up some guys that might be risky, but can get you over the hump in a couple games. I don't think it's going to take too much to stop the likes of, I guess, what is still going to be Taylor Heineke in Washington.
Ryan Fitzpatrick, man, put some respect on the name.
Right, Ryan Fitzpatrick. And Daniel Jones is Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
But still, if you're going to be able to, if you assume that your quarterback play is enough to put you in competition for maybe not the division, but at least a wild card spot, defense is what's going to move you through the playoffs. So I think this is playoffs. We're talking about playoffs. So yeah, this is.
I started that sentence trying to say, man, I keep taking us off topic and just like ruining the flow, and then realized, no, that's exactly what saying that sentence would be. And I tried to stop it, but I already started, and I'd already stopped you, and my God, it's a mess.
This is a draft I would hate if I was a Giants fan.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to take away from it.
Because you have absolutely no faith in any of your front office decisions, and seeing guys with a big risk would be like, we're fucked. Every one of these guys is going to die. Like they're just, it's over.
Yeah, man. So we all right. So actually, to close off this, after this draft, assuming a healthy Dak Prescott comes back, how would you shake out this division? Who moves for you?
I would say it would go Dallas, Washington, Eagles, Giants.
Okay.
With the Eagles and Giants really coming down to QB play. I think Washington's defense and the fact that Ryan Fitzpatrick just cannot suck and has never sucked. He's just good enough to get you almost there. I think that would lock them into number 2, and then the toss up with 3-4.
Yeah. I'll say Dallas, Philly, Washington, New York.
That's fair. Jalen Hurts works out. Some of their defensive pieces work out. They could put together a good season.
I'm also the statistical likelihood of Ryan Fitzpatrick eventually sucking increases with every season that passes.
Very fair, yeah.
So hey, maybe it's this year. And I like Jalen Hurts. He seems like he's gonna do well. So
I like him too. It's that
I
mental
forgot his
game for
name,
me.
but I believe in
I
him.
fucking love his mental game.
All right. So we said we were gonna do two divisions. One, we said we are gonna get to the North today, but fuck, we are not getting to the North today.
Josh thought we could get through all 32 teams today.
I was wondering if we, yeah, it was foolish. I also said the same thing about us doing draft predictions, getting through all the whole first round, and yeah, we didn't do that either. So,
I couldn't have done it that first night. My
no.
throat was so dry I would have died.
So we're gonna put the other three divisions per conference on pause for a bit. Next episode is actually going to be when we have Emily Nyman back on. We're going to be talking some baseball shit. There's some new rules that the three of us are going to talk about. Some other topics going around baseball that we'll be talking about with Emily Nyman on Thursday's episode. And then after that, probably the next three straight, we'll be finishing out our draft discussion and looking forward to OTAs and kind of seeing what happens with those, since they basically didn't happen last season. So it'll be interesting to kind of segue into the resumption of normal football practices post or during COVID, I guess.
It ain't over yet, folks.
Yeah.
Get vaccinated.
Please, for the love of God. We'll never hang out with you dumb bitches if you're not vaccinated. And we are kind of fun to hang out with sometimes.
Do you got anybody like golf? Anybody want to play golf with us?
Golf backwards is flog, which is what it's like to golf with Corwin.
Saying as the only person to ever hit me with a golf ball.
Twice?
Who knows?
Yeah. Really, what it is I just fucking suck at golf.
All of those domestic battery incidents, they all just blend together in the memory, you know?
What can I say? It was a Forrest Gump shot.
Yeah.
I never saw a cent of that $1 million. All right. Anyway, so we'll wrap it up there. So again, Thursday's episode, we'll have Emily Nyman back on. After that, it'll be draft shit. So stay tuned, folks. Fun shit on the way. If you want to follow the show on Twitter, you can do so at JuicingPod. If you want to follow Corwin on Twitter, you can do so at Corwin Heller. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do so at Joshua D. Tracy. If you want to send us emails about shit, you can do so at juicingthenumbers@gmail.com. And that is it. So until Thursday, y'all have a good one.
Bye.